We'll now be hearing from our second opposition speaker, James Vitale. James is a second-year PhD student reading politics at Christ's College. He is also the executive officer-elect of the Cambridgenian and won the slot through open audition. James, the floor is yours.
Madam President, thank you for the opportunity to speak on what is a subject that matters greatly to me. This House would not wear the poppy. This is a free speech society, and we offer a platform for debate and discussion on all and each of the most pressing subjects that we ought to be talking about. Still, I can't but help feel slightly sad that we're debating this particular motion tonight. And in the next 10 minutes or so, I hope to explain why I feel that we have lost sight about what exactly it is we are doing when we all wear the poppy. What exactly it is we are remembering in this period of remembrance. And I'd just like to associate myself with many of the things that Josh said to us earlier. He brought a solemnness to this debate that it absolutely deserves. Remembrance, if it is for anyone, is for people like him and families like his. Now, lots of us have this evening personal stories when it comes to remembrance. Josh is the most visceral. I come from a family of servicemen and women. My mum and dad serve, my uncle serves, both of my granddads served, and my cousins intend to serve. And for as long as I can remember, Remembrance Sunday has had a deep, emotive, personal significance for me. And that is because every time this day has come around, I've stood on the road in which I grew up, on which are located my childhood home, my primary school, my church, and the pub where I got my first job. And I've watched my parents, with my mum at the front, as a lieutenant commander in the Navy and the local chair of the Legion, march with numerous other service personnel and veterans through our village. It's always been a moving experience, one of great pride and dignity. I'm humbled by what my parents and so many others do, because in the background of this day of remembrance is the powerful sense of sacrifice and loss, not only of those who have indeed sacrificed and lost, but also of those people like my parents who are explicitly prepared to do this too in serving today. And it's obviously not just me who feels this way. In fact, what makes Remembrance Sunday so special and this year so particularly sad is that it is an opportunity to stand together with others, shoulder to shoulder, strangers and friends alike, and mark our gratitude for what others are prepared and have been prepared to do for us. It is a cruel truth that the people who probably most wish to participate in communal remembrance ceremonies are the most vulnerable to the thing that is keeping us all apart at the moment. Because there is something very powerful about sharing that profound sense of gratitude with others. It's not just important for those of us that watch remembrance ceremonies that we do it together. It's important for those service personnel and veterans participating in it too. It is poignant that my granddad, a former major in the army, has travelled all the way up to London from his home in Plymouth in recent years to partake in the service at the Cenotaph. I know for a man that doesn't really like using public transport over long distances that he is moved to do so by the fact that it means so much for him to participate in the Remembrance Sunday service in London with others who've had the same experiences as he has had, others who understand what is demanded of you in serving. But I want to go on to why I think it is that we wear the poppy, and why therefore it is sad that we are considering a proposition not to. Why do we wear the poppy, this symbolic flower that grows in disturbed, churned soil? I think wrongly that the poppy is nervously associated with the valorization of war. We've heard that this evening, that the poppy is a version of jingoism, albeit a sanitized version, to borrow, I think, Christopher's word. There is an argument that if you object in principle to war and violence, then you ought not to wear the poppy. However, this is not a specific enough account of what it is we remember, what it is that the poppy symbolizes. What we remember is the unambiguous, unequivocal fact of sacrifice. And I want, with the time I have left, just to examine this a little bit more, for it is crucial, a crucial reason as to why I think remembrance is such an important unifying event for our country. In wearing the poppy, we're not remembering the particular decisions of particular politicians who we may more or less agree with. We're not glorifying war as something that's conferred greatness on our country. We are not maybe harping back nostalgically to a time with specific societal values that we think today are being challenged. No, what we remember is the fact that people from different creeds and walks of life did choose to give up their lives in service of this country, and that people today choose to work in a line of business where they too may be required to do exactly the same. We remember the undeniable selflessness that exists in laying down one's life for others. And this is irrespective, really, of intentions. What we confront during remembrance is not straightforwardly why people have made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of others and of this community we share, but simply the fact that people have indeed done so. We remember, in essence, the deed, and that these deeds took place is incontrovertible. We remember the very real choice of individuals who gave up their todays so that we could have our tomorrows. This fact of sacrifice, I think, imposes moral obligations on us that would not hold if we were remembering the political choices of individuals or acts of violence that characterize war. If we were remembering those things, you could legitimately disagree with the ceremonies of remembrance, and you could in clear conscience agree with this motion, if that is what the poppy is about. But it is not. It is about the undeniable truth that men and women in a particular time and place did in point of fact give up their lives, and that it is incumbent on us as the beneficiaries of those sacrifices to recognize that truth. It's about the grim, uncomfortable, painful fact that the place we inhabit and the lives we lead today were secured at tangible, concrete costs for other generations. Why is this so important, this fact of sacrifice, as I call it? Well, to me, it is important because the burden that we carry collectively, the debt that we owe to those who have given their lives for us, is a deeply unifying thing that exists only so long as we recognize it in our hearts and minds. It is a platitude to say we live in deeply divided times. I think that this debate kind of characterizes that. Those things I mentioned above that are sometimes associated with poppy wearing, the decisions of politicians, acts of war, societal values from another time, all these things might well be potential subjects of legitimate debate. And in hyperpolarized times like our own, as Caitlin has mentioned, they may even become subjects of intense dispute. But what we are remembering should not be disputable or considered disputable or divisive. We may disagree on why people had to make sacrifices for us. Many of us will do. But surely we cannot disagree on the debt that we have to those that did sacrifice, whatever their reason. You could be a conscientious objector, and you could simultaneously wear the poppy as a sign that you remember what others have had to go through and to sacrifice, even if you abhor the reasons. That is coherent to me. Indeed, to respond to Christopher's point from the very beginning, the message with which the earliest poppies were distributed after the armistice in 1918 was never again. We can commit ourselves to avoiding ever repeating those scarring events, but we can at the same time acknowledge that that there were people who are not able to avoid such nightmarish moments. So I reject the binary that Christopher poses. Recognizing our debt to these people is something that brings us together because it is a moral burden we all must bear. Remembrance is not something else that can be weaponized as part of the culture wars that are a lamentable presence in our politics today. It goes far beyond that. Remembrance is one of those things, and there are not many of them, that can transcend division and disagreement in this country. And the fact that we do together is symbolically important. That is why the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition and all the major parties, together with former Prime Ministers, representatives from different Commonwealth nations and from every faith group, all lay wreaths at the foot of the same memorial to an unknown soldier. It is why the royal family lays wreaths with them. It is why we all wear poppies together. That is the spirit that I think Josh argued for earlier. And it seems to be something that Christopher and Caitlin have overlooked. It is a statement of something that underpins our own sense of ourselves. Our collective commitment to remembrance is a moral compass that can give us direction when all else seems so disorientating and unclear. It is a very human expression of gratitude and debt that we share in common, even when much else seems to drive us apart. It is an anchor. And just to finish, people have still been buying poppies in their droves, selling these little red flowers in Lions Yard shopping centre. You come across all sorts of people wanting to do their bit to mark the occasion and donating generously. There was a young girl who had just started secondary school and had joined the Army Cadets, father of 3, a man in a wheelchair, some university students, a lady who had been searching all across the local area just to get her hands on a red paper poppy. Most of these people had very little in common. They looked different, they were of different ages, led different sorts of lives, probably had different political views, but they all felt compelled to wear the poppy. This sentiment is very powerful, And I think it's very healthy for our society because it binds generations and regions and classes together. And I profoundly believe in the importance of safeguarding and protecting those institutions and customs that do cut across the things that separates us and that foster a basic sense of togetherness. It is something that we are losing, but it is exactly what wearing the poppy is about, togetherness. And that is why I argue fervently against the motion this evening. Thank you.